What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. The NBA offseason look-ahead train rolls onward. Go check out. I don't know how many teams we've done at this point, but we've been kind of churning them out. So go check all of those out. We're on to the Golden State Warriors. One of us might be a little bit invested in what happens into this offseason. Grant, how are you feeling?
How are you? I've reached acceptance in the stages of grief. I reached it pretty quickly. I reached it like about 3 seconds after Steph pulled his hamstring. Started mentally and emotionally preparing for this conversation. So I'm doing great. Have no issues. Nothing's wrong at all. I wish I could just dim the lights there. It's all dark in here now.
We should have had emo Grant dressed up for this podcast.
Need like a black hoodie. And just, I really should have
polished like Jim. Just been a spitting image of Jimmy during the 2023 Miami Heat Media Day.
Yeah. No, look, the post trade deadline portion of the season was like highly encouraging. Even then, as we talked about, like the team had real flaws, like pretty exploitable issues, and then age and injury kind of entered themselves into the picture, and that really exacerbated everything. So let's talk about the Warriors offseason.
So getting into their vitals, the age and injury history is not going to go anywhere, I don't think. But they're not like, this isn't the Phoenix Suns here. They are around 17.4 million below the tax, and 25 million below the first apron. And just as a note, if you want them to use their non-taxpayer mid-level, 14.1 million, they need to stay below that first apron. However, and I think this is going to define a lot of this discussion, none of that includes a new deal for Jonathan Kuminga, who reportedly had turned down like close to 30 million last year. I don't think he gets as much this year. But per the Athletics, Anthony Slater, both sides want to work on a sign and trade. And so before I throw it to Grant, the other thing we want to outline here is I would agree that a sign and trade makes sense for both sides, and the Warriors need kind of like shooting, size, maybe another wing defender here. Jonathan Kuminga provides roughly none of that, which is why it makes sense for a sign and trade. But you do run into base year compensation issues. And Grant, if this is too convoluted, I know you understand, let me know. Base year compensation means if Jonathan Kuminga signs a contract for $30 million per year, he only counts in a sign and trade. He only counts as $15 million in matching money for Golden State, but he counts as the full boat, that $30 million to his new team. And so that is the gap. There are ways around it if you're working with a team that has cap space or if you just expand the trade. But that is something we have to keep in mind. I've seen a lot of names thrown out as part of a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade. And many of them, it's not going to be legal. But with that said, let's start with Jonathan Kuminga. Where are you at with him as a player? And then do you agree that, one, is he better off elsewhere? Are the Warriors better off without him? And then two, like what type of value would you think that he has in any deal?
Yeah. So it's been his whole career has kind of been a roller coaster, and you got sort of a mini version of it in this postseason where he's out of the rotation and then he looks phenomenal for a game or two. And then, kind of turns back into what he's been like, I guess, whatever his general like baseline level is, which is he's going to score and like not help you in any other ways, really. So, I don't know how you evaluate that player. I like if you're an acquiring team because I do think, first of all, they should sign and trade him. I think that is the pathway to the best pathway if you don't want to rely on the mid-level to improve the team and to get the shooting and playmaking and non-Steph scoring that you need. Maybe it's to get like a more playable, like legit starting center. Like maybe he's the way you do that. So I think a sign and trade is the way to go. I do think if you're another team, well, tell me what you think about this, because I feel like I can't be trusted. If you're another team, can you talk yourself into, Kuminga's just like, he just hasn't been allowed to do what he's good at. Like, it's really more the situation. It's very hard for young players to thrive with Golden State. That's just been the case historically. There is like an all-star here somewhere. Like, do you think I guess may as well just say Brooklyn, since that's the team that could pay him more than 17 or more than 20 a year. Like, is there any part of Kuminga where you're like, oh no, I think I could justify believing there's a star level player here. We're willing to make an offer sheet or offer a trade commensurate with that valuation?
I think you could talk yourself into it. And the two ways that I would do it would be, maybe it's three, but like looking at the context of the team, could you put him in a situation where he's going to have a more consistent role and be on the ball, or at least be viewed as the primary play finisher more?
Mm-hmm.
Two, I think floor spacing around him is super important. So is
Mm-hmm.
it a team that, if they have a traditional big, is there just a bunch of shooters around him still? Or do they maybe have some more stretch at the five than a lot of these other teams? And then the other thing I think is, the question I'm asking is there an analog of a player? Not the exact archetype, but it's, he goes through like the first 4 years on his team and you see these flashes, but then he leaves and comes closer to actualizing the player everyone thought he could be. Is that Julius Randle after his time with the Lakers? Is that, like, I'm not, again, different players, but
yeah,
you kind of need to, like, what is the precedent for something like that? Like, even Markkanen leaving the Bulls and then leaving Cleveland and turning into what he was in Utah for a couple seasons, there was like more of a precedent, or more of a sustainable precedent, than we've seen with Kuminga so far. I just don't know how much of that is a symptom of the Warriors are trying to be good. He doesn't really fit like Kerr's guiding tenets, and they
right.
didn't have the stomach to let him maybe try and fit into
Mm-hmm.
that. That's what's, and I've generally not been like a Kuminga guy compared to you or consensus, frankly.
Yeah.
But I still, like, you see what he could do on offense sometimes. Like, oh my God, it's there.
Yeah, and like it's the eye test, because just athletically he can do stuff other guys can't. Like we saw that in the Minnesota series. Like he's like just athletically he has superstar athleticism. I don't know what that counts for if you don't have the other stuff. But like to your point, it's not just watching him that you could talk yourself into him being special. So this is cherry picked, admittedly, and it's very easy. For some reason, it's so easy to find like incredible cherry pick stats for him. I don't know why that is. So Dan, there have been 9 players across their first 4 seasons in the NBA to average 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists per 36 with 58% true shooting. Okay. And we'll cut it off. You have to have played at least 250 games. So there's no guys that showed up and played
How many games did Jonathan Kuminga play? Was it like 251 or something?
It's like 258. Yeah. It's like just trying to find a sample. So there's 9 guys. Kareem, David Robinson, Shaq, Charles Barkley, Karl Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, Adrian Dantley. These are all basically Hall of Famers or very, very close to it. And I don't know how Montrezl Harrell did it, but he slipped in there as the other guy. So it's possible that Kuminga is just worse than Montrezl Harrell and also worse than everybody else I listed. But that's a wild ass list. And it just speaks to like his actually weirdly like efficient scoring and like just that he hasn't gotten a real opportunity because his per games are, he's got 15 a game. He just doesn't play 36 minutes. That's how you talk yourself into him being legit. If you're a suitor, it's like, if we play him 36 minutes, he's going to have incredible numbers. Like that's just what will happen. Will that drive winning? The Warriors would tell you like, probably not. But so I just don't know. I don't know how the league views him. I don't know how he should be viewed because it's been 4 years and I still think you're just like trying to weigh the pluses and minuses. What I do feel confident in, and you asked this earlier, is that he's not going to be the best version of himself on the Warriors. I feel like the relationships have been strained enough. I feel like the style of play is just never going to be one that says like, hey, go cook in isolation a lot and we'll just stand around and watch. Like that's just, and he doesn't want to play, what was the Spurs thing? Like, what's like make a pass, dribble, shoot decision in like half a second or something like that, or 5/10 or whatever. He's never going to be that guy. He can't function that way in like a ball movement, egalitarian offense. So he could be great somewhere. I don't think it will happen in Golden State for a number of reasons. So you just have to view him as a sign and trade guy. I think that's the bottom line.
What do you view him as positionally? Is he just a 4, or do you think he can be a 3-4?
I think he could be a 3-4. The reason that, I mean, I think the Warriors wanted him to be a 4 and he just never rebounded or defended, especially on the interior, enough to like justify that. So that's part of the conundrum too, is like he wants to be like a prime Kawhi Leonard level, like on ball 3, I think is what he wants to be and what he thinks he is. And the Warriors just disagreed. So I think he makes the most sense as like mostly an off ball, like transition threat cutter, offensive rebounder, multi-position defender, just like athletic tools wise. So that's a 4, but that's not what he wants to be or how he wants to play. So whoever ends up with him is going to have to navigate that.
Aside from Brooklyn, which I think could just, I mean, they have Cam Johnson, but I think the trade, if it's just straight up with Brooklyn, is Kuminga plus what gets you Cam Johnson? Because, well, let's start there before getting into Kuminga stuff. What do you think is the bigger need for them? Is it getting more? And Steph mentioned all of it in like kind of the effort of everything. Is it size? Is it getting kind of another wing defender that you would trust more than Moody at this point and gives you more offense than GP2? Is it shooting that doesn't come in the form of submarining your defense potentially, like Buddy Hield?
Yeah. I think it could take two. There's really sort of two, but they're related. So it's got to be someone that can either make shots at a high enough clip that the defense is concerned about them and produces offensive spacing through that concern, or it's somebody who is good enough on the ball to be successful, like bending the defense such that your like mostly poor spacing doesn't hurt you as much. So playmaker, shot creator, or like spacing shooter. I don't think you can realistically expect to get like both of those things in one player because that player is a superstar. One or the other of those would be fine and address what I think is the most glaring need, which is this team cannot reliably score without Steph in the game against good defenses. That is the reality. So you have to address that first. And if you don't go get bigs, like I think most people are fine with like you bring Looney back, you have Jackson Davis, you have Post, Draymond plays center at the end of games anyway. Like you're going to be small. You can survive that. I don't think you can survive with an offense that is just Steph or nothing. I don't think that's going to work.
I'm with you, which is why we talked about this when we were recording the Cavs look ahead, where would there be some weirdo 3-team construction where Golden State gives up picks with Kuminga salary to bring in Jared Allen and Cam Johnson ends up in Cleveland. But if you're going to attach stuff to Jonathan Kuminga, you don't want it to be for a big is what it sounds like you're landing on, right?
I think so. Don't you agree? Don't you think?
I agree. I was just
rather just have it be Cam Johnson if you're trading Kuminga, right?
Right. Are there any other teams though that I guess would let's start with the Bulls. One, I don't know how much sense he actually makes there with Modest Buzelis. If you think those two could play together, that'd be super interesting when you look at in terms of physical tools between those two. But would you be a little bit bummed out if a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga yields back? And there'd have to be other moving parts, but it's like you get Nikola Vucevic on an expiring contract and that's it.
Yeah, that feels pretty underwhelming. Although, like, I mean, I don't know how much I believe in his shooting, but he would just be an offense threat that you have to account for as a defense. Like the Warriors just don't have that. And if you can get it at center, great. I actually like the construction of Bulls deal where you're also getting Lonzo Ball, which is risky, but just another smart. And he's kind of neither of the things I mentioned. Like he's a good enough shooter or when healthy, which is the biggest if on the planet, and a smart passer. Like he would thrive, I think, in the Warriors like offensive philosophy. Yeah. Like I think if you can get any kind of healthy stretches from him, he would really be a value add. And then Vooch is what he is. But yeah, that feels underwhelming for Kuminga, except like what I struggle to find, because you go back to the Cam Johnson well, and other than that, like I just don't know what you're going to get for him in a sign and trade that's like clearly helpful.
Would you do, just because there'd have to be more money involved, like would you include Moody for Lonzo Ball and Vooch? That's like aside from Podziemski and I guess Quentin Post at this point, that's like your last well of prospects.
Right. And you're really selling low on Moody too, because he just totally fell apart in the playoffs, especially against Minnesota. I think you would probably hesitate to do that because odds are over the life of his contract, which is less than mid-level money, Moody's probably going to outproduce Ball. I would guess. But you have you can't really have more injury uncertainty than you would have with Ball. So that's the Warriors. I don't think you want to trade Moody right now, just because this is like the nadir of his value since he signed that new deal.
Now, I think this hasn't been talked about, and probably maybe you would hate the fit, but like, what about you would have to attach other stuff to Jonathan Kuminga in this, but like, what about targeting Kobe White as part of this? We know the Bulls can't extend him. They have Josh Giddey entering restricted free agency. Is that too redundant? Or not even redundant because Steph can play with anybody, but it's, okay, like what are we doing here? Or is it, man, you talk about someone who might be able to lead the offense without Steph on the court.
That's the thing. He fits into the vacated Jordan Poole role, where it's like, just go out there and run the show and get a little nuts if you want. And like, maybe we'll win those minutes and maybe we won't, but you'll have to be guarded. Like they don't have that. They just like Podziemski's not that guy. And Kerr was yelling at him that he needs to shoot more. Like the second the season ended, basically, Kobe White will break the defense down and score. Like I can understand why you say, like, is that a little redundant? Like, is that overkill? Do you need a guard like that? Yeah, I think you do. I think you do. I think you really do.
Because that would be, I mean, there's different things that you could do then if you're willing to include Moody. Like Kobe White is so cheap that like Kuminga, Moody picks for Vooch and White works, or you could go Lonzo Ball and Kobe White for Kuminga plus smaller salaries, and then like picks in there. There's a bunch of different ways that you could do it, and like the idea of Kobe White in Golden State feels weird, and he is coming up on a new contract. Who knows how much it costs to keep him? But like you have Butler and Dre, like it feels like that team would be pretty dangerous if you had Kobe
I think White. He's a player like that. They just don't. They haven't had a guy like that since Poole, and Poole was very imperfect. But like, you need a guy that's gonna like. They just don't have anybody that is like one. And Kobe White would check the off-ball threat box too. Like he's like, so that's a whole other thing. And he's a willing like, yeah, you'd be smaller, and the Warriors certainly this postseason run did not suggest that they should try to get smaller. But I think you really do address the offense stuff pretty strongly with like he's a fringe all-star producer, like, and he's young enough that maybe he just does make an all-star game. That would be a major add. I think then you're talking about, are they short on the big wing stuff now? I mean, maybe not if Kuminga was never going to play in a postseason series anyway. So yeah, you could live with that. I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Are there any other teams or like fits that sprung to mind? Because I don't want to use him to get a big back for the most part. Like Charlotte would be interesting and something built around Mark Williams. Like you need something else. And like Josh Green doesn't do it for me. I'm not touching Miles Bridges with a 20-foot pole from Golden State. So that's kind of tough. And like, that's what's tough about Kuminga is kind of finding like a team where, okay, they need to value Kuminga, even if you are attaching picks to him. And also is going to send you back stuff that you need. And we're saying, yeah, big could be part of it, but it can't be the meat and potatoes of that deal.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier if like a Mark Williams, for example, was what they felt like they needed. That type of center has historically not.
That's also a great point.
Made a lot of sense there.
And like the Clippers don't need him. And like Memphis is a no. You don't want any of you don't want Kuzma out of Milwaukee, so that's got to be a no. There's just like
even if you look at other teams that are like semi-flexible relative to the league, like Detroit has no use for Jonathan Kuminga. Like there's no, he doesn't make any sense there.
It doesn't make any sense in Sacramento or San Antonio, really. Washington, I just don't know. Go ahead.
Well, so you could talk. I think I've seen some version of like Kuminga to the Wizards. Kispert comes back, and I can't remember who else I've seen in there. Yeah, maybe I can't remember now.
Is it like a double sign and trade with Malcolm Brogdon and Kispert for?
No, it was a big. I wish I could find it. But something like Washington, though, to your point, is a team that's like, yeah, you might maybe be like the right team to take a flyer, even though Washington's so far away that like, do you really want a guy on his second contract that you're not sure about already taking up a bunch of money? Like maybe not. But the team's in that position where it's like, we can afford it. We could take a crack on it. Like that's what you should be looking at.
Kuminga's the last thing Orlando needs. I don't really think he doesn't make a ton of. No, it doesn't make any sense in New Orleans. Yeah, that's
like if Utah. Like I don't think it doesn't make sense.
They have enough fours. I guess if you thought and like if you could, I don't know. Actually, maybe if it was Kuminga and picks for Colin Sexton, is that something you're?
Why don't we revisit the Markkanen stuff?
Well, I mean, the money getting there would be, so you're trying to keep Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph while incorporating, what is Larry Markkanen on the books for? 40+ million next year or around there?
That sounds right. I'll pull it up while you're talking.
I mean, that at that point is all right. So you're giving a Buddy Hield and Kuminga and Moody and I like that just to make all the math work, or is it
Markkanen's 46 next year. So that's like impossible. Like because Kuminga, the base of your compensation is like, well, how do we do this?
And there could be like maybe something more complicated where it's, what if Phoenix is pivoting and they want Kuminga, but they have to duck the second apron to acquire someone in a sign and trade. And so it's like, what's the other team in that? And what do you want out of Phoenix? I mean, like Ryan Dunn. I don't know why they would get, so.
I mean, Kevin Durant would be fine. Can we make that math work?
We can, if you want to give up Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler.
Well, so that was the other thing. It seems like all those contracts, Kerr, Butler, Green, and Steph, they're all lined up to expire the same year, which like, so it means you're not trading. Obviously, you're not trading Steph. Butler, like that's going to be a hard guy to trade. Draymond, you're not going to trade. Draymond would be the guy though if you're like, we need another salary, because for a long time it was, well, that's what Wiggins is for, and then they traded Wiggins. Now it's just you don't have that mid-tier salary to high mid-tier salary to move, and they're just not going to break up this core, which is fine. They're probably not going to win a championship anyway, but like that would make things a lot easier if you were willing to move Butler or Green. I think they've all decided like, we're just not going to do that.
Right. I mean, I guess because they've been mentioned with Giannis, which I don't view them. I mean, they can include 4 first-round picks, but I don't view them as a real threat with Giannis. You would need someone and if it's Giannis, you suck it up and trade anyone but Steph,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
But you would need someone to really, really value Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green to send the Bucks more stuff. So I don't view them as a Giannis threat. I'm assuming you're.
I just don't think they can have the best offer without.
He would have to do his like best James Harden / Jimmy Butler impression to do it.
Right. Yeah. Giannis would have to say like, I'm going to Golden State, make it happen. And just like with San Antonio and Houston out there, like why would he take that posture? Number one, and then two, like that still doesn't mean that that's like feasible, you know?
So, okay, so I don't think this is feasible, but this team, let's just say they're looking to duck the second apron and they're really doing a full-on reset following an injury to Jason Tatum. You send Jonathan Kuminga to Brooklyn still.
Okay.
And you send all your first-round picks to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough to get you Derek White?
Oh, I was hoping you would say Derek White. He would be so perfect, Dan, on Golden State.
You know what you do, because you're then below the first apron, you then go give Al Horford the non-taxpayer mid-level. That's I think I just made the perfect Warriors offseason.
I would be doing backflips. Al Horford could be 45 and I'd be like, great signing at the mid-level.
By the way, I don't know how much they're going to be willing to pay him, and this might be a way to transition out of the Kuminga stuff. Well, actually, let me start here. How important to them do you think it's going to be to stay beneath the first apron? Do you think they're going to want to access that non-taxpayer mid-level?
Well, that's the thing. Like, if they use the mid-level, they're hard capped at the first apron. I don't think it's that important to them. I think I think they're okay with getting hard capped. I don't know who that player is going to be. If it's would that be a pay raise for Al Horford?
It would. So, like, if you had it available, it's like you can give him more than the mini MLE. But like, because Al Horford would be. He's not like, when you're looking for someone like kind of bruise and like really crash the glass, that's not what Al Horford does, but he would be so perfect for this front court.
He would work with Draymond and Jimmy Butler up front, which is like, there's like 3 guys that's true of, and none of them are gettable except maybe Al Horford. So yeah, I don't know. I think that they have to sort of be aggressive and be, just because of the age of the core. So like, if that means getting hard capped and you get the guy you think is the perfect fit, like a Horford, then you do it, right? Like, well, otherwise, like, what's the point here? You're leveraged on the present, like, to an extreme degree as it is. You're about to lose the best prospect you've had in a really long time because you didn't play him enough. So it's not like we're thinking of 5 years ahead.
So look, we solved it. So we'll send Moody or we'll send whatever salary plus Kuminga to Brooklyn to make the math work for Golden State. And how many first round picks, honestly, are you giving up if it meant getting Derek White? Would it be so the picks that they could trade, by the way, are 26, 28, and 2030. It's the good half of 20, where it's like
20.
Yeah, only if it lands 1 to 20, and then 2032.
I mean, you don't want to Mikal Bridges this, but I think White's better than Bridges.
I'm here to tell you, sir, that is unequivocally correct.
I'll go 3. I think I'd give up 3.
I don't know if Boston would do that. New ownership maybe makes it a wild card, but like, he is the guy where I view as the players I don't want to see them move if they're really going to. Like, he might actually be above Jaylen Brown for me.
I agree.
It's just because of the contract. Jaylen Brown is so good, but Jaylen Brown's number 2, and then it's like, you really try to move Drew and Kristaps Porzingis, but I don't know if Porzingis has any value. So it was just, you were talking, I was just like, they have a lot of picks, and if Boston was really just like, we're taking a gap year, and like, if they're getting 3 first-round picks and just out of the second apron entirely, and you could still maybe they want Moody as just like a cheaper replacement. They're getting out of they're cutting costs by moving Drew or Porzingis anyway. So it doesn't have to be we're just getting off of Derek White's salary entirely. But if the return is 3 first-round picks and Moses Moody for Derek White, my guess is that Boston probably doesn't do it, but I wonder if it warrants a conversation.
What do you think the value around, like, because we like romanticize or overvalue like shorting the Bucks or the Suns or whatever. Do you think those 28 and 30 Warriors first round picks, if they're like lightly protected, would be viewed as like, oh my God, those are like crown jewel assets? They have to be, right?
That's why, honestly, if they didn't need like to get super complicated to make the money work, because Danny Ainge thinks that way, like he's probably contacting them this summer about a Lowry marketing trade to try and get like short those picks.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is gonna be done in 2 years. Like that's just it's written in stone, like the way the contracts are structured. And like you just lost Kuminga, you're gonna lose Kuminga. So it's like, is Brandin Podziemski and
Derek White
gonna like, you don't really have like the pipeline is not, it's not totally barren. Like Podziemski's a good player, like he's a starter. But other than that, it's like there's no easy way out for the Warriors after this core is done. So like maybe then in answer to your question, like maybe it's not 3 picks if both of those are involved, right? You're buying the Warriors dip like at the exact perfect time if you're trading for those picks.
Yeah, because I'm assuming 2026 has very little value if you're sending the Warriors someone good. So then you're looking at those 3 out years as if you can get 2 of those with very light to no protections on it. That's interesting. Derek White just feels like if I'm Boston, I'm not doing it because I'm just going to hold out. But I think you would, if the picks are on the table, I would think you have to at least think about it.
Yeah, you got to think about it. I don't know.
And maybe it's Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn has to give up that one. You need Brooklyn to want Jonathan Kuminga. Like if you end up signing and trading Jonathan Kuminga into Brooklyn's cap space, it's just like it's not disastrous if it's that type of construction. But would Brooklyn even give Boston like? So they're not going to give the first for Jonathan Kuminga. Do they have any like bad firsts in the pipeline? Brooklyn is drafting. Oh, they're drafting. So maybe it's like they could send Boston 26 and or 27 as part of a Kuminga sign and trade. And like Boston's like, look at all these first round picks we got for Derek White. Part of me wonders if I'm looking at this through too much of a Warriors lens, but the value feels like if you remove I think if you're not a Celtics fan, and if a Celtics fan said this is stupid, and we have Celtics fans in our Discord, yeah, sure. But the value feels like if the Warriors are putting 3 first round picks on the table, the value, and you're not taking back any shitty money, the value feels about right, especially if you can get another first rounder, like one of those low ends out of Brooklyn.
I mean, I think you probably just double sign and trade Kuminga to the Nets for D'Angelo Russell, and then later flip D'Angelo Russell for Andrew Wiggins, and then you're just back where you're comfortable. I feel like that's the way to do it. It worked once before.
But I think we mapped out the perfect Warriors offseason just
that's
now.
It.
Trade for Derek White and sign Al Horford.
Poach 40% of Boston's rotation.
Would you expect them? This is the Draymond Green extension. If he signs it, he'd be age 37. It's fine. Nothing for him, right? I mean, it would align with what Jimmy Butler and Steph are doing, I believe. But
isn't he already lined up? I kept having the thought that they're all equal.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong then on his.
I know Kerr, Butler, and Steph are all done after 26-27, as is Draymond right now, except he has his 26-27 is a player option.
He would decline it as part of the extension, and he would run through 27-28.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing that. And if I am doing that, it's because I plan to trade him and I want that salary number on the books after Curry. Well, we're getting way too far ahead, but do you think Curry's just going to retire after 26-27? Like,
I hope not.
I hope not too, but
I hope him and Al Horford and LeBron are in Golden State in their 50s, just winning 37 games or something, but playing entertaining basketball. But Steph,
the pickleball scene,
just like Al Horford, Steph, and like to LeBron to an extent, he's just so polarizing. It's cool to see these players age and still just be so impactful. I think in the Warriors case, it's uncomfortable that Steph means so much to them, but it's incredible that he still does. So I hope he's not retiring after this current deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll come back and start doing the Tim Duncan Dirk thing where he's just taking way less. I mean, you can't be paying him $75 million or whatever it's going to be.
I think that's what's interesting about this is not really directly related to the Warriors about any Kevin Durant trade is that if he's willing to sign with you, like we're just assuming he gets the max, or is he actually going to be making less money on his next deal, which makes trading for him more palatable?
Yeah, I don't know. That's another wrinkle. Like, honestly, like I think Jimmy Butler was the right get, But I do still wonder what might have happened if it had been Durant instead. If that was a pretty interesting sliding doors moment.
Yeah, I just go back to the value you gave up to get Jimmy feels like it was going to be less than you had to give up to get Durant.
That is true. Yeah.
I think the drop off between those two, and they're completely different players, is I'd have Jimmy plus the ability to trade 4 first-round picks this summer over Kevin Durant plus however many picks you could trade. Yep. Is there anything else on that we haven't talked? Like, is there? We didn't really mention Brandin Podziemski as sort of, we were throwing picks on the table for all these players, but it's like, does Brandin Podziemski help you get something that you need, or is he too valuable to this team right now?
Well, that's another one. I think, yes, he would help you get something you need, but he's also too valuable. And that's kind of part of the problem, because he doesn't consistently address like what the issues are, just his unwillingness to shoot, his, all of his shot creation issues. Like, I think he's a piece that they still pretty clearly believe in, like, a lot. Like, I do think the Warriors tend to have like, well, ownership believes in this guy, but the coaching staff thinks differently. That's the Kuminga case. Like, I think Podziemski, like, everybody is like, no, he's a keeper. He plays winning basketball, blah, blah, blah. He'll get better. But that's also the reason that, like, he could get you something if you wanted to trade him, is because I think a lot of teams feel that way. So yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. Trade discussions get a lot more interesting if you start like including him in some of them, I think.
Would you trade him for Derek White?
Yeah, Derek White's just way better. Like, it's not close.
Oh man! So anything else? Quentin Post, how many All-Star games will he be making for his career?
6 to 7. Boy, it did hurt my heart that he really was just correctly played off the floor in that Wolves series. But that's fine. He's a rookie. They've already gotten more value out of that draft slot than they should have. So we'll take it that way.
I do think, as a final thought on the Warriors, what's encouraging about the Butler trade, and even they acted early with Dennis Schroeder, it felt like they were trying to just, straddle a middle ground until they were forced to go in for Jimmy Butler. It does seem like, okay, they understand, like, we need to be aggressive to capitalize on these next 2 years that Steph has left after this, which, if you're a fan, I think is encouraging. I don't know what trade opportunities will arise for them. Cam Johnson just feels like the name, but we've all just assumed that Brooklyn wouldn't mind having Jonathan Kuminga, which
that's I don't know what the percentages are on that, but it's close to a coin flip, I'd say, at best, because if you're Brooklyn, why this can't be the guy that you're like been waiting forever for, Jonathan Kuminga.
We didn't do most likely to be traded for them. Is it just Jonathan Kuminga?
Oh God, yeah, but like, is it Kuminga or the field? Like, I would still pick Kuminga. It just has to be.
We didn't talk much about their own, for like Kevon Looney or GP2. You just said they'd probably be okay bringing those guys back if they have to, but in an ideal world, maybe they're coming back, but you're also upgrading on those spots.
For sure. Yeah. I think you're bringing both of them back. They're like, Looney is like approaching like franchise icon status in one of those weird, like, role player ways,
Yeah.
And really GP2 is kind of that way too, but maybe you pay them less. I mean, what did they both made around 7, I think. Looney made 8 last year. GP2 made 9.
Yeah, I can tell you that neither of those guys are getting that. I would be unless the Warriors are doing it as like, we want trade ballast for middle of the year.
Exactly. That's the only reason they get raises. No, I think they should both be back on like 1+1s or just whatever. Make it a line. Yeah, 1+1 would set it up so that they come off when everybody else does in the old dude's core. So maybe that's the way to go.
Big offseason Golden State. I think this offseason is going to be wild. So many. They have 4 first-round picks to trade, and I'm going to guess that they are going to trade at least one of them.
Let's hope so. They got to do this. Isn't Cleveland or some other teams where it's like, just run it back, you're good. I think they pretty clearly need some help.
Are you ready to take us out of here?
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, leaving good comments, thumbs up in the YouTubes, all that stuff. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. Until then, shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.